Hi everyone, it is Bridget here from Bridget's Healthy Kitchen, the home of healthy delicious. Thank you for joining me on this very cool, very exciting cooking class. We are making a beverage today, and for some of you that beverage is probably so familiar, you probably grew up with it just like I did, and it is Milo, that malty chocolatey drink. We either would have it hot, we would have it cold with just milk. Sometimes if we weren't, if we were being a bit sneaky, we'd have it by the spoonful. Just pop it in your mouth and off you go. But Milo is something that so many of us grew up with, especially, New Zealand, Australia. It was definitely the drink of choice. And it was also the drink that was definitely touted as being a healthy beverage for kids to consume. Closer inspection of the old trusty Milo, we will find that it's not as healthy as it was claiming back in the days. And I think what's happened in the last couple of years is those claims of health have been getting less and less and less and less. So I happen to have a tin of Milo here, completely empty now. But when our son was in hospital, he really went with Milo. He wanted to have Milo with everything, and I think the reason being is he wanted that little bit of comfort. So I totally get it. I get that comfortness, that kids like to have that comfort feeling when it comes to something like this. So we bought him a big tin, and this is literally I've still got the tin because I do like to keep tins. And on closer inspection of what is actually in Milo, I'm not sure if any of you guys have picked up a tin and had a bit of a read, but let's go. The first thing that I see is it's got extract of malt, of course, malt barley, or malt barley and rice. So straight away we've got quite a lot of carbs. Malt gets converted, what's another word for sugar basically. So we've got sugar and carbs right to begin with, or sugar and sugar. We also have milk, so there's dairy in here. We have sugar again, that's the second time we've seen sugar. There is cocoa, there is minerals, being calcium, iron, there is maltodextrin, another word for sugar. So we've got 3 sugars appearing here. There's also corn in here. Did you know that there's corn in your Milo? That actually shocked me when I read that. There's corn, there's vitamins, there's a few emulsifiers, and there's also soy lecithin in here as well. So there is a number of things that are not necessarily that great for us in the old Milo. Look, I know it's convenient, and I know that we do tend to feed it to our kids, but what if there was a healthy alternative? Just say for instance that someone, not naming any names, decided it was time that we had a healthy alternative. And let me tell you, the reason why I decided that we needed to have this whole healthy alternative is I had a lovely chat with the most beautiful woman and based in WA, and she was telling me about her Milo addiction. She's trying to be really, really good with her diet, but she falls over when she feels she needs to have that Milo before she goes to bed at night. And think about what she's putting into her body. She's putting dairy, she's putting loads and loads she's putting corn, she's putting barley, she's putting sugar into her body. And of course, you know what happens when we are consuming something that's full of sugar and carbs is our insulin levels spike. And when our insulin levels spike, we go straight into fat storage. So that innocent cup of Milo at the end of the night, you think, oh, it's just a bit of Milo, can't be that bad. Think about what it's actually doing to the insides of our bodies. Think about the hormones that it's totally throwing out of balance before you go to sleep. So what's the healthy alternative? I know, right? Crazy. I've been working on this for a couple of days. Now I have to let you know that this recipe that I'm giving you guys, I will be putting it out tomorrow as a PDF printable, so in case you want to take notes now, but I will be putting it out as a PDF tomorrow, so you get to download a copy if you would like. But this makes 500 grams. It literally makes a tin. This is a good recipe. So it's one that you can make and you store it in an airtight jar, and it will last you probably longer than your normal tin of Milo last you. So it's a pretty good recipe. So just be prepared. It makes a lot, which is probably the only way you want to make Milo, right? Because you want to always have it in the cupboard next to the coffee and the tea so that you can always have access to something healthy, delicious, and of course satisfying. Enough talking. Let's get into the recipe. Come on down to my bench. There is only a couple of steps that we have to take into consideration when it comes to our healthy Milo. I spell it M-Y as in my, low, L-O-W. So a couple of steps we have to do. The first step is, believe it or not, we're actually going to make a bit of a caramel. So the caramel, the way that we make caramel is I am of course using Bridget's Healthy Kitchen Sweet as Fibre Syrup. Yes, 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 I have my first hands on my very first bottle that came off the production line yesterday, and I'm going to be using this. And if you're wondering when are we going to be able to order that, I'm still just waiting on Mahey to give me the green light that the website is ready to take your orders. We don't want to hit the button too soon, because if you order it and then we can't find it, that's a massive, massive problem. So bear with us, it's coming out really soon. We're going to put that on our private page as well as our public page. This is Bridget's Healthy Kitchen Sweet as Fibre Syrup. I'm going to put in 100 grams of our fibre syrup. It's going to go straight, and look how easy it is to come out of the bottle. It is so good. And look at the color. It is liquid. I call this liquid gold. I absolutely love it. So 100 grams of that goes in there. Nice and simple. As well as that, because we are going to be making a bit of a caramel, you can either do two things here. If you want to do a completely dairy-free version, you would then add 30 grams of coconut oil into here. But I'm more than happy to, because I've got my hands on this amazing grass-fed butter, pure British butter, which I thought was pretty nice. So I'm actually going to do, which I don't do very often, but when it's a good quality grass-fed butter, I do like to use it because it is a real healthy fat, and there's nothing wrong with a bit of healthy fat in here. But if you want to go completely dairy-free, your option is then to add in coconut oil. And we're going to add in, not very much. Oh God, that cuts so nicely. Look at that, it's just super flexible. That's how you know that's a really good butter. It's not breaking up, it's super flexible. And all I'm going to be adding into our pot here is 30 grams of our beautiful, gorgeous, I want to eat that, but I'm not going to. I think it would be rather inappropriate, and I probably would regret it, even though it makes me want to. I'm not going to do it. Yes, I've got a question.
Is your fibre syrup safe for celiacs?
We have a question about fibre syrup and celiacs. This is something that I've had a few times, because it's definitely a valid question. The question is fibre syrup safe for celiacs? By the way, I'm just putting this on. We can get this going. I'm putting it on my little cooktop, and I'm putting it on to a medium to high heat. That can bubble away while I answer the question. Is fibre syrup, or our fibre syrup, okay for celiacs? So where the problem has existed in the past is there are a lot of fibre syrups on the market that are not pure 100% chicory inulin. So if you are a celiac, you may have had an adverse reaction to other fibre syrups because there are very, very small, but obviously you guys can pick it up, trace elements that upset you, mainly being gluten. This is 100% pure inulin. That's all that's in it, is inulin, chicory. So if you're able to handle our inulin powder, this is the liquid version. So for celiacs, there is zero of anything else in there but pure as fibre syrup, which is pretty exciting. So there you go. To cut a long story short, if you can handle our inulin powder and it doesn't upset you in any way, you are going to love our fibre syrup. Alright, what's happening over here right now is I've got bubbling happening. Let me show you. Oh, come down, come down, come down, come down. Alright, can you see that? Bubbling, 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 which is perfect. We are creating a caramel, remember, which is good. So that's why we want it on that medium to high temperature. While that's bubbling away, I'm going to ready myself my tray with my non-stick baking paper. Really important, because once this caramel is created, and it doesn't take long, remember if you've ever made caramel before, it's one of those things that you do not want to walk away from. You want to stand here and you want to keep an eye on it, because what we're looking for, as you can see, it's still kind of quite blonde. What we're looking for is the change in color. And the change in color can happen quite dramatically. That's just yogi tea, by the way. I start my day with yogi tea. I'm going to end my day with Milo. So I'm looking for color change. And color change is going to indicate that we are now creating caramel. What's happening, so it's still that blonde color, what's happening now is the steam that you're seeing that's coming off the pot. That is the water content, the natural moisture content evaporating out of the fibre syrup and out of the butter, or if you're, in your case, if you're doing a dairy free, it'd be coconut oil. And as it evaporates, it begins to get hotter and hotter, and it begins to concentrate in flavour, and then that colour change will happen, just like you're doing it with normal refined sugar. Not that I want you to do this with normal refined sugar, because then it defeats the purpose of having a sugar-free Milo, doesn't it? So I'm just keeping my eye on it, I'm swirling it. Don't put any spoons near this. All you need to do is just give it a gentle bit of a swirl, and already I'm seeing the colour just begin to go from blonde to slightly caramel, but I want to take it a little bit further, because it's when it starts to caramelize and the colour starts to change, the flavour changes. And what we're after is a really gorgeous caramelly flavour from our fibre syrup. It smells so good, guys, let me tell you. It is just one of those delicious, amazing things. It smells so good. Alright, so can you see now? Can you see how the colour, I'm not sure if you can see it, the colour is definitely starting to change. I'm going to let it go just a little bit longer. This is so important that you don't move at this point. If the phone rings, let it ring. You know, if something happens in another part of the house, let it happen. You just, all it takes is a couple of seconds, and you go from caramel, which is what I've got here, to burnt. And when it burns, it goes completely bitter. And that is 100% not what you want. So give it a bit of a scrape now. Let me turn that noisy thing off. Give it a bit of a scrape. Extract as much as you can from it. Extract as much as you can. Alright, here we go. And now we're going to allow this to cool down. So see how quickly it's already set? I'm trying to tip it, and it's gone hard already. So you do have to move quite quickly. But I'm going to let that set now. Pop that over here. Let it set. While we move on with the other ingredients in our Milo. So really simple now. This part will not take long at all. I'm going to take up my little food processor, because what I would like to make is a little bit of sunflower seed flour. And did you know you could make your own sunflower seed flour? Because you don't need very much. We only need to put into here, my little food processor, I'm only going to add in 35 grams. So you could literally go and buy, you know, a packet of sunflower seeds from the supermarket for a couple of bucks, and you can make your own flour just with this little gadget. I love this little food processor more than you could possibly know. It is literally my lifesaver. So in there it goes, and then give it a bit of a buzz. And believe it or not, what I'm actually listening for is the change in sound as it gets finer. Remember, we were making a flour. I'm gonna go whizzy bang. There we go. And as it gets finer, you'll notice the sound changes. So that's another thing to keep an eye on in the kitchen. Is it's not just about visuals, but it's also about sound as well. Mahay's impressed with my machine as well. It is so good. I've even got it on full speed. This is full speed. Alright, so we now have made our very own sunflower seed flour. Just in a couple of seconds we've been able to do that. If you kept going, what would then happen is you'd make a little sunflower seed butter, because the longer you pulse this, it will actually start to turn into a bit of a butter. I'm not sure if you knew that as well. And you can do the same with almonds, you can do the same with hazelnuts. Like if you want to make your own almond flour, 100% just do that straight into your little blender on high speed until you get a fine powder. If you want to turn it into butter, keep on blending, and what then happens is the oils separate and you'll actually get almond butter from it. So sometimes it might be easier for you to create your own, sometimes it might be healthier for you to create your own, and sometimes it might be cheaper. So it's a nice little option. So now that we've done that, all we're going to do now is just mix everything together. So putting my big bowl here onto my scale so I can measure directly into there. Of course I already measured that, so I know what's happening there. That's my sunflower seeds go in. And absolutely guys, get out your spatula, because you want to extract all the goodness. I bet you never thought, why is she putting sunflower seeds into Milo? That's really weird, I know, but please trust me on this. It is fabulous. All right, so that goes in there. We are also, oh, we should put dirties. Dirties go next to that. We should also, at this point in time, point out that I will be adding almond flour into there. But if you wanted to, as I said, you can make your own. So when it comes to the almond flour, square that off. I'm going to be adding in 120 grams of almond flour. Goes into there. And you're like, really? Milo? Trust me, guys, I'm slightly obsessed with this Milo. Slightly obsessed. Alright, so 120 grams of our almond flour goes in. Of course, we need to give it something chocolatey. And the way that we're going to be doing it, of course, is with raw cacao, full of antioxidants, so it's really, really good for us. In fact, you know, this particular cacao, so the raw cacao that you get either in the health food aisle or in the health food store, is incredibly good for our brain health as well as our gut health. So I'm putting in the cacao, and what you need to go into there, remember I'm using the raw one, is you need 80 grams of cacao, and it's bitter. This is a bitter type of, you know, cocoa powder, for want of a better word. If you were to purchase normal cocoa powder, what you might find, 80 grams there, what you might find is that cocoa powder from the store that you buy in the, you know, in the packets, has got sugar in it, and it's got, you know, all sorts of other additives in it, whereas this is just pure cocoa or cacao nibs ground down to a powder. So that's 80 grams of that goes in there. We also need to consider that we need to make this sweet. Remember, in our traditional Milo, 3 types of sugars, 1, 2, 3. So far, I've got a sugar alternative, which is our fibre syrup, which have turned into this amazing caramel, but we still need to sweeten up the pot at the same time with our fibre syrup, because our cacao is quite bitter. And the way that I'm going to do that is with my erythritol, which is a sugar substitute. Now, if you're wondering, it looks exactly like sugar. So it's a plant-based alternative to sugar. Erythritol has 0 calories. Not that I count calories, but it just happens to have 0 calories. So I'm putting 0 calories into here for a start, which is amazing, right? It can be used as a one-to-one replacement for refined white sugar. It will not spike your insulin. It will not spike your blood sugar because it has 0 GI. On the glycemic index, it counts as being 0. So it won't do any of those nasty things. Is it okay for diabetics? 100%. And the other thing about this is that it won't give you any gastrointestinal issues as well. So the other thing about erythritol that I haven't told you guys is that we're going to start to stock this. And this is the first sample I've got of our erythritol that we're going to hopefully get to you guys in the next couple of weeks. So in the meantime, you can purchase it from the supermarket. So I'm going to be adding in a cup, which is around about 180 grams of erythritol. Remember, this makes 500 grams of Milo. So even though we're putting in 180 grams of that, we've got all these other goodies in there that are gonna work together to create something quite delicious. Yes, I have a question from Mahei.
Christine Wilkinson's asked, is there an alternative to almond flour?
Is there an alternative to almond flour? I'm not sure, Christine, if there is an alternative because I haven't tested them. For those of you who want to do a nut-free version, you're probably going to have to test out some alternatives, maybe a seed. The only thing I would caution is that seeds can be they've got quite a big flavour, whereas almond is quite a neutral flavour. So you want to go for something very neutral. If you're just not wanting to do almond flour and wanting to do something else, another type of nut, I would definitely stay away from cashews. Cashews I don't recommend at all, just because they're not a great nut for our gut health, and they're also not a great nut for our overall health. So I do avoid cashew nuts where I can, even though I know it's quite popular in the vegan community to replace cashews for dairy. I completely stay away from it. I do find that almond tends to be that very neutral flavour, hence why it works well in Milo. So sorry, I can't answer that question for you. Yes, we got another question?
A few people have asked, can you use monk fruit sweetener?
Can you use monk fruit sweetener? Yes, you can, and I'm assuming you mean, if you actually look at, I'm assuming you need these packets of sugar substitute called monk fruit sweetener. If you have a read of that packet, what you'll find is it's basically erythritol as the base, and then they put monk fruit to give it a bit more sweetness. So it's quite a sweet flavour. I personally don't like the flavour of monk fruit. I prefer the very neutral flavour of erythritol. Erythritol is about 60% as sweet as normal sugar, whereas monk fruit sweetener tends to be higher in that comparison of how sweet it is towards sugar, and there's just a flavour there that I don't quite like, so I prefer the plain erythritol, and it's because I've been leading a sugar-free life for so long, I actually find it too sweet. So yes, you can use it as a replacement. I'm not a fan. I'm also definitely not a fan of stevia. Stay away from that stuff. It's just downright nasty. Can't stand it. Oh, it's awful. Tastes terrible. Not even good for our gut health. It's the complete opposite of gut health. So that's why I use that. All right, let's have a look at our caramel. What's happened over here? So what we're looking for is, of course, you need the ability to pick it up, but you're also looking for it to crunch. And my one is still a little bit sort of, you see, it needs to be kept a little bit longer. So luckily, I thought that might happen. It takes about 10 minutes to get into that crack stage. So when you pick it up and you snap it. So I actually made some earlier thinking that we might have that issue. And as you can see, I now have that snap ability. So that's what you're looking for when it comes to your gorgeous, gorgeous caramel. So back to my little machine. There we are. We're going to make this caramel into a very fine powder. So you definitely need to wait till your caramel cracks before it goes in here. And this is the other reason why I don't suggest, I think it's a must that you store your Milo in a airtight container or airtight jar, because you are putting in this caramel into it, and if you leave it with the lid off slightly, you might come back and it's just one big lump, and that would be an absolute waste of all those wonderful, fabulous, healthy ingredients. So back to my little machine. See how handy this little machine is? It's so good. Once again, I'm listening for the sound as well as looking at it. And as there's less noise, I know that the powder's getting nice and fine. Look at that. Ay, yeah, yeah. That's it. That is done skis. So exciting. So exciting. All right. That just goes straight into there. Scrape it out. Don't waste any. And what you will find when you go to make your Milo, especially if you're using hot water, and I always make mine on hot water because I like a hot beverage. When you go to make your Milo, these little grains of that wonderful fiber syrup caramel actually melt into the liquid, and it is really quite fabulous. So I'm going to be adding just one more ingredient to this. One more ingredient, because you know that adding that fiber syrup means that we've basically made a prebiotic Milo. Never heard of such a thing. Potentially the first prebiotic Milo in the world. Bear with me. There's one more thing I'm going to add to it, and we're just going to be upping the fiber content just a little bit. And the reason why I'm adding this, and this is psyllium husks, is that when you heat up or put your Milo into hot water, the psyllium husk is just going to give it a little bit of texture and thickness, so it's not so watery. It's not like it's going to be glumpy or gluey. I'm just putting in enough, and I'm putting in a tablespoon of psyllium husks, so I've increased the fiber content, but I've also given it the ability right there to get just a little bit syrupy, which is what we want. So that is it, guys. That's it. That's all you have to do. And like I said, you make so much that I've finally worked out something to do with my big coffee jar. That was the Milo I made the other day, and it nearly filled it up right to the top. And this is a big jar of what was coffee, and it filled it up nearly right to the top. So nice airtight lid, which is what I like about it. But how do you obviously make it is completely up to you, the way that you want to work it. Let's imagine that that is a mug, but I'm doing it in a glass so you can see. But what is the quantities? And this is really going to depend on your level of, like, who you're making it for a start. If you're making it for yourself, I would suggest 2 tablespoons of Milo. 2 tablespoons of Milo. And then, of course, some hot water. We know what's going to happen with the hot water is it's going to melt all those wonderful ingredients and create a lovely chocolatey drink. And then I also like to finish mine off, give it a good mix. I also like to finish mine off with a little bit of unsweetened almond milk. That is up to you. I do like it a little bit creamy, not too much, just a little bit creamy. And that for me is just absolutely spectacular. Now, if you wanted to give that a bit of a try, see what you think. Like I said, for me, I find it absolutely wonderful. I think it's absolutely perfect. But for some other people, they're like, oh, I think it needs more Milo. Add a bit more Milo if you like it to be a bit more chocolatier. Or if it's being served to kids, you might just want to add just another teaspoon of erythritol as well, and that'll give it that little sweetness that they're used to. But of course, it won't spike their insulin. It won't give them a sugar high. It'll just give them a wonderful little rush. So that is our Milo. And as I was saying, it really excites me that we're able to have something like this because it's so delicious and it's so comforting. And it's so the opposite of what the traditional was, yet it has that wonderful comfort factor of having something warm and delicious and a bit chocolatey and a bit wonderful in your life. So I hope you enjoyed this. Like I said, tomorrow I will share the PDF if you want to print out your own version of it. Please keep an eye out on Bridget's Healthy Kitchen. That'll be going live tomorrow. All right, guys, take care. Have a fabulous day. Stay safe. And we'll see you back here in my kitchen real soon. Take care.